Divas, oh my goodness, really got a great show in store for you this week. Republican Party of Florida Chairman Evan Power, oh my. We talk all about President Trump. We talk about Governor DeSantis. We talk about the GOP's ascendancy in Florida. You will be very interested in this conversation, and we have a lively. It's lively. Also, we talk about hemp and what might be in store on that issue. So join us today, please. Republican Party of Florida Chairman Evan Power.
You don't get a Governor DeSantis without a President Trump before him. President Trump was a disruptor. He came in and reorganized government, took on campaigning in a whole new way, reinvented the party in a different way.
You're listening to Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida. Let's dive in.
Oh, divas. Oh, my goody gosh. Guess what? I am so excited. Today's special guest here with me in the Speakeasy. And I've been trying to nail him down for a minute, and he is here live in person. The Republican Party of Florida Chairman Evan Power. Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. We go way back since you were just starting out in the Capitol, weren't you, when we first met?
Yeah, you were one of the first reporters I probably met in the process, to be honest.
Probably. You were scared of me back then. And
I think we're all scared of you.
Yeah. Not so much anymore, though.
That's fair.
I'm pretty benign. I think there's a lot. There's many more fierce reporters than this old gal. So anyway, let's get started. Let's get right into it. Got a lot to cover. You are, the political world. You're the chairman of the party that owns everything politically in probably the most politically influential state in the country. Is that a misstatement?
No, I think we're the epicenter of the political universe right now. You look at what we've done as a state to be a model of conservatism, and then when you look beyond that, for President Trump to pull so much talent out of Florida, people are really looking at what Florida's doing, and the conservative states are trying to mimic what we're doing to bring that kind of brand of conservatism to their states.
What do you think was top of mind for voters in November? President Trump won Florida handily. He's very popular here in the state. Governor DeSantis, we'll get to him in a moment. He is also very popular. Let's not forget, despite whatever we in the media like to, always there's a proxy war here and a proxy war there, here proxy war, there proxy war. But President Trump is very popular. What do you think was the most important thing to voters in Florida and across the country?
So I think it came down to three things. It was immigration, the economy, and inflation. And, economy and inflation kind of go hand in hand. But those are the three issues that voters cared about. And here in Florida, Democrats didn't want to talk about those issues. They were talking about abortion and weed. And when you do that, the electorate became very, very polarized and came out very big for us. You saw depressed Democrat turnout, big Republican turnout, and we win the state by the most since 1988, which people a couple years ago would have thought was unheard of.
Right. Well, you also have done, this started before you took over as chairman. The Republican voter registration has just eclipsed the Democrats. You said I was talking to a consultant the other day, not a Republican consultant, and they said, look, it's really not something that the Republicans have done as much as the people coming in here are registering at the DMV, and they are registering, the vast majority of new voters are registering when they get their driver's licenses. Can you give us some numbers and attribute the reason for those numbers?
Well, if you could say, other Democrat consultants can say that. The reason is, why are they coming here? Well, the reason they're coming here is because we have been the model for the nation in conservative policy. 2 years ago, we had the most conservative legislative session in history, and people want what we're offering them in Florida. So people are moving here. we're also converting NPAs to Republicans and converting Democrats to Republicans. So all those things are happening simultaneously. And we've empowered our grassroots to work day in and day out registering voters. And we're about to be at a 1.2 million advantage. And if you look at it, it's unheard
That's
of in
so
history.
crazy. That is so crazy.
It's amazing when you look at it historically. 5
Yeah.
years ago, Democrats had a 200,000 voter advantage. So in 4 or 5 years, you look at this massive wave, and it's because people like what we're offering. And if you look for the first time in my lifetime, people are voting with their feet, which is kind of what the founders thought was going to happen with these laboratories of states. And people are seeing what we're offering in Florida, and they're moving here from New York, from Illinois, from California, because they want what we're selling.
So people who are more ideologically aligned with the governor and the legislature are moving here. Where are the other people going?
Well, it seems like some of them are going to Arizona. Some of them are going, to Illinois, California, where they think that their views are being represented. And I think also what we're seeing is a net migration that's not coming in. In the past, a lot of those southern Democrats who lived in the condos, those enclaves, you look at Miami narrowing, you look at Broward narrowing, Palm Beach narrowing. Why is that happening? There's some people who do not like the free state of Florida brand.
They're dying off.
Well, they're dying off. And then the people who are coming to replace them from Illinois, the Democrats from Illinois, California, and are retiring to Arizona.
They're not being replaced.
Yeah,
they're not being replaced by the same subset of liberal, lot of Jewish voters, liberals. They're not coming.
They're not coming because they don't like the free state of Florida brand. But instead, you're getting people like hedge fund managers from New York who don't want to live in New York anymore, and they realize now with technology they can do their trading from South Florida. And you're seeing a surge of economic activity because of that.
What does free state of Florida mean to you?
I think it's allowing people to make these choices. It started with COVID, where if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't. Allowing people to make the choice of where their kids go to school, what opportunities they have, empowering citizens to make those choices and not the government.
Is that sort of contradicted by we're not going to have these kinds of books in schools. We're not going to have, access to abortion. And I agree with you. I think that the Democrats overplayed the abortion issue. Yep. People were exhausted of that issue by the time the election came around. I think people might change their minds about it. And after we see the full effects of the 6-week abortion ban, I do think people might, there might be some buyer's remorse on that, or there might be some shift in thinking. I mean, you know better than I do. What do you think?
Well, I think the parade of horribles they laid out is just not the reality. People, they made the argument people are going to be dying on street corners. That's not happening. I think there's an opportunity for people. I mean, at the end of the day, I just don't think the issue is that important to voters, and I think it's been a winning issue for Democrats, or at least in their minds, and now it's not an issue that brings voters to the polls.
In other states, I mean, Florida is such an outlier. Again, it was on the ballot with the 60% threshold. That's a different animal. Mm-hmm. I have been saying, and not me, I mean, much smarter minds than me, including you, it was about, this election was about bacon, eggs, and gas.
Yeah. The
price of those things. And what do you think is going to be the impact? You mentioned the economy and inflation for voters. With these tariffs, what we're seeing is the economy is not, I don't think things are going to get cheaper in the short term. What kind of impact is that going to have on Republicans? And in addition to now, I'm seeing reports where they're saying like, don't have town halls because people are angry that jobs are being cut, lots of government jobs we'll talk about DOGE in more detail in a moment. But I just wonder the, backlash from some of what the president is doing. Now, keep in mind, he's only been in office for just a little over
40
a month.
days.
I know. And it feels like, what the heck? The world is just changing so rapidly, right? But what do you think if there going to be any fallout from gas still being expensive, eggs being expensive, the prices not coming down, and people not being able to access services or losing jobs because of some of these efforts.
Well, so we'll talk about DOGE a little bit
Yeah,
more later,
yeah.
but for me, it's prices never come down. When prices go up, they stay up. Inflation doesn't retreat. That's a bad, it's just the way it is. But the wages have to come up to meet the prices. I think what you're going to see in the short term is a stalling of inflation. You're going to see inflation slow, the rate of inflation slowing. But the American workers have gotten a raw deal for many, many years. Our trade policies are a disaster. So we are going to enact tariffs, and there's going to be a disruption in the economy in a short term. But the long term is we're going to get a better economic policy for U.S. workers and the ability to trade in an equal way. We've been taken advantage of, and that's what people are mad about. Why are there no jobs, manufacturing jobs in America? Because we've had bad trade deals. Free trade is great, but we need fair trade.
How do you see that working out? Like, you think we're going to bring those manufacturing jobs back?
I think some of them will come back. You saw that there's a plant that they were going to build in Mexico that they're going to build in our heartland again. You're going to see some of those jobs come back when those tax rates are fair. And why should we be incentivizing people to move things to Mexico? It just doesn't make sense as a government policy.
Some of these things are going to take time. Now, that will take less time. One of the things that I've been talking to people about that they've been expressing concern about in Florida is it's just expensive to live here. One of the reasons that people maybe aren't coming down here, that certain people aren't coming down here, is they just can't afford it. I mean, talk about entering the housing market. You used to be in real estate, right? Yeah. I don't know if you still are. Okay, but you used to be, so you're familiar with what's going on in the real estate market here. I don't know how young people who do not have inherited generational wealth can enter the housing market nowadays. You tell me how that works.
Well, I think you can. I think you obviously have to save, but some places it's very difficult. And I think you've seen the legislature try to affect affordable housing for that reason. It is expensive to live here because people have moved here at an alarming rate. Insurance got out of control. I think the legislature's done a good job of trying to bring that down. We're seeing new carriers enter the market. So hopefully the insurance rates long term will be sustainable and get back in par. But it's also expensive to live in California. It's also expensive to live in Texas, certain parts of Texas now. So I think that's part of people moving here, and we've got to balance all of that out together.
So it's just expensive to live in the United States anymore. I should have probably started with this. I didn't even play nice. I just came right out of the gate there. What motivated you to become involved in politics and eventually become the chairman of the Republican Party of Florida? You took over. There was quite a controversy.
There was a kerfuffle.
There was oh my gosh, I love that word.
No, so I interned in college. I intended to go to law school. I interned with Marco Rubio when he was the state house member on his way up to being speaker, and I got the bug and started in politics. I did campaign stuff. I did lobbying. Did a little bit of everything, and it was actually Marco who got me involved in the local party, and then I became
in Miami.
No, here because I was staffing him here, and he came to a local party meeting.
Yeah, because I always thought you lived here, but I knew you were in with the Miami crowd.
I was because of Marco and all the people that I worked with. But then I didn't do as much as I probably should have at the beginning, but Jeff Howell and a couple of people here who was the treasurer of the party at the time got me back involved. I became vice chair. The chair left. I became chairman of a local party.
The chair left, he says.
Okay. No, this is my local chair.
Oh, okay.
And so I became chairman of the Leon County Party. And
That's right.
And then I thought that was the highest I would ever go. And then I did a couple of roles in the state party, and then ran against Christian Ziegler, lost by a few votes. It was a very divisive election.
I bet there's some buyer's remorse on that now from those folks, but go ahead.
Yeah, and then we obviously had some problems after I became vice chair, and then we were able to right the ship. And I think a testament to our party and how strong it is even with all of those problems that happened about a year out from an election, we really didn't miss a beat. We got back to fundraising, and we ended up raising a little over $100 million last year for the party, and we're able to defeat the constitutional amendments and win supermajority or defend supermajorities for the first time in Florida's history. So I think, it was one of those things that it was tough when we made the decision that we needed to go in a different direction, but we didn't really miss a beat, and we were able to. It says a lot about my grassroots and the leadership of our state party.
How long have you been chairman?
About a year.
It feels like 100 years ago now.
It does, and
I mean, and I like, who knows who Christian Ziegler is anymore? And he was like, the brand of name recognition was way up there a year ago.
No, it's amazing. And I had when I told my wife that I was going to seek the chairmanship after that was happening. I had a 2-month-old, so I've been doing all this with a small little child. But it seems like a lifetime to me. I haven't slept a whole lot in the last year, but we're getting there.
Oh my, okay. What do you consider your biggest challenge as chairman of the Republican Party?
Well, I think as the Republican majority gets bigger and bigger, there's competing interests. You have, the House campaigns, Senate campaigns. You have constitutional officers who want to do different things.
Right.
And I think one of the challenges from a state party is how are we relevant and what we need to do to be relevant. And I think with the constitutional amendments, we really proved what the state party is supposed to do, which is our grassroots were out working on those constitutional amendments. We were able to run money through the party in order to take on the ads to fight those amendments. And I think that's a big statement of what the Republican Party can do as a structure and bring everyone back together. It's been one of my goals to bring all the elected officials back together. And I can tell you, we're all working hand in hand, even though sometimes there's some policy differences.
Right.
We're all working together for the big goals of registering Republicans and turning out Republicans.
That's very interesting, and I do love it. My divas will know when I say this, that when the guest starts answering questions before I ask them, because I had Al Cardenas on here about a year ago, maybe longer, and he was talking about the kind of dismantling of the infrastructure of the party now, with the House and the Senate doing their own thing, and they took their equipment. They left the building that I used to be in the terracotta room. I could see it it was within eyeball range of me, but and the governor, it's just like the Senate, the leadership, the legislative leaders are doing their own thing with the leadership races. So it is curious to me how you stay relevant and how you continue to get how the state parties are able to still keep getting contributions when there's so many competing, so many hands out competing for those funds.
No, and I think it's part of what I sold, and you've seen in big investments from certain elected officials once I became chairman. They believe in the vision that we have, which is turning out voters and activating the grassroots network. I mean, we've done a series of Zoom calls with our elected officials with my state executive committee. They've heard from the governor, they've heard from the speaker, they've heard from the new attorney general. And really, we're seeing elected officials understand the importance of what the grassroots who go out and work doors mean to them. And you're seeing a party become relevant because you can talk to the media, but you need those people who are diehard supporters or the guys who knock doors day in and day out. You need those guys on your side too. You just can't buy media and expect that to be the solution. And I think one of the reasons we have such a big advantage over Democrats is we have a much bigger volunteer force that's working day in and day out too.
I think an interesting example of the power of the grassroots local, the RECs essentially, was and the influence of the governor on those folks is the response to the legislature's balking at the immigration special session and their proposal. And I mean, I was on that call when they were hammering. I mean, this wasn't, with Speaker Perez, they had the sheet of paper that the governor's team or your team or whoever, but they had the governor's talking points. And again, they might be your talking points.
That was the
governor, right? Saying like, basically this is a crappy plan and here's why. And they were, regurgitating that and confronting the speaker. Now that's, he's a popular guy too. And he's, that's you wouldn't normally see that kind of tension, intra-party tension, right?
Yeah, I think it's new, but you're seeing the power of you got to see what's happening with our grassroots kind of come to life. If you saw that same enthusiasm from our side on amendments 3 and 4, um, when the governor started doing teletown halls, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't on 3 and 4. I didn't think teletown halls could get up to 1.5 million people to hear
Mm-hmm.
someone talk, but 1.5 million people answered the call, got in, and listened to the governor talk about amendments 3 and 4 for like 40 minutes. It was amazing to me. And then they
Hmm.
would go out and take our materials out, our palm cards and our door cards, and walk doors. And we knocked tens of thousands of doors from our volunteers on those amendments. And I think that's the governor really harnessed his power there, and was able to kill the amendments based on motivating our grassroots and tapping into the enthusiasm they had.
He also did something unusual, at least in Florida history. I don't recall this. I don't think anyone else recalls this, and I've been around for a long time. By using actual state resources to oppose those amendments with websites, and we don't even know, I don't think, fully how much money was spent from taxpayer dollars to oppose the Amendment 3, which would have legalized adult use for marijuana, and Amendment 4, which would have enshrined abortion rights in the state constitution. I mean, for all the talk about DeSantis being a lame duck going into the last 2 years of his term, I think that he really flexed his muscle, and I don't think you can overstate the significance of the governor's opposition to those and them going down.
No, and I think, and when you look at what happened with some of the state resources things, and I'm going to talk about abortion because I know these facts pretty good,
Sure.
is that you have people like Anna Escamani and Carlos Guillermo Smith going out there and lying about what the current law of Florida was. They're
Mm.
basically saying you can't get an abortion in Florida, you can't get health care if you have a problem in your pregnancy. All these things
Mhm.
weren't true, and I think it triggered a level of response from our government that needed to be done, because they're saying, listen, what these people are saying is abundantly not true
It's
and
okay.
false.
Wait, I'm going to push back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we do have conversations, and I also, I do know a little bit about this. There were actual providers that were confused about what the law permitted them to do, because it does carry a hefty penalty.
Yep.
And, financial, and I think jail time too, criminal penalties. So I think that, there was a lot of confusion, and the state has since issued some guidance and tried to clarify that, right? So
Yeah,
I'm not
I
wrong
think,
about that.
yeah, I think the two went hand in hand. Is one,
Mhm.
they provided.
So is it the tail wagging the dog?
Yeah, I
or-
think they provided clarification to the providers, and then
Yeah.
at the same time, we're informing the public what you're being told isn't entirely
Right.
true.
Okay.
These are the rights you have, and so I think they use that as saying, oh, they were campaigning on abortion, but it was informing people that no, these are the things that are actually happening. Like, if you have a problem in your pregnancy, go see a healthcare provider. Don't be scared to do that.
We'll be right back with RPOF Chairman Evan Power. Moffitt Cancer Center is at the forefront of cancer research, treatment, and innovation, serving patients across Florida with groundbreaking therapies that redefine the future of cancer care. On Moffitt Day, this Wednesday, March 12th, in the Florida Capitol, we will celebrate the life-saving impact Moffitt is having across Florida and the advancements that are transforming patient outcomes. Through cutting-edge research, Moffitt accelerates the discovery of new treatments and brings them directly to the bedside, ensuring that patients receive the most advanced and personalized therapies available today. With superior survival rates and innovative approaches to prevention, diagnosis, and treatment, Moffitt is shaping the future of cancer care. Join Moffitt in celebrating the progress they've made in cancer care and advocate for continued support of cancer research and innovation. Visit moffitt.org/impact to learn more. The news in haikus. The news in haikus. Trim waste and bloat, or eliminate essentials. To DOGE or not to DOGE? That was the news in haikus. Don't forget, we'd love to hear your haiku. You can slide them into my DMs, or you can send them to podcasts, that's podcasts with an S, at e.newsserviceflorida.com. Wherever you're listening, please don't forget to subscribe and give us a rating if you like what we're doing. And we're back with Evan Power. He's the chairman of the Republican Party of Florida. Let's talk about the Donald Trump's influence and on the Republican Party, his influence here in Florida. He is a Florida resident. He is hashtag Florida man, right?
That's correct.
Right. What do you think his legacy is within the Republican Party of Florida right now? And how does that mesh with Governor DeSantis? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're all, as I said, proxy war, but how do they're two very popular, very powerful figures in Florida.
Yeah, I don't see them as black and white like some people do, that one wins and one loses. I think you don't get a Governor DeSantis without a President Trump before him. President Trump was a disruptor. He came in and reorganized government, took on campaigning in a whole new way, reinvented the party in a different way. I think you have a more active, vibrant, involved grassroots party because of the work he did, and also the view of breaking the mold of we don't have to be scared of what Democrats are saying. We're able to confront their lies. We're able to confront the things that they're doing. And, and I think the governor followed on that and has led Florida in a very aggressive manner.
Pugilistic. I'd say it's pugilistic,
Well,
right? It's like Rock'em Sock'em Robots all
correct.
the time.
Well, Republicans used to be polite, and then they would lose because they were a little too
That
polite.
was Reagan.
Yeah, well, and he was successful in his time, but I think we got stuck in that mold of we needed to compromise with these people. But when you look at Democrats, when they take control, they want to win everything. And so for the first time, you have a Republican Party who is like, we're in power. Why don't we win everything?
Didn't President Biden want to cooperate?
No, he didn't. No, I mean, I think I find it funny in this first 40 days where Democrats really don't understand what's going on. They're like, we want the rule of law.
Right.
Well, Joe Biden ignored the Supreme Court on student loan forgiveness. He just thumbed his nose at them, but they weren't concerned about that. So to me, for the first time, and to your point, he never really wanted to compromise. He wanted to win on all fronts. You look at allowing men to play in women's sports. That's a 78% issue. 78% of people don't think that should happen. Joe Biden was like, we need to do that and encourage it and change Title IX because of it. So I think they tried to, their fringe.
That issue did not work well for Democrats.
No, it didn't. And so he let the fringe run his White House. And now what you see is President Trump represents.
Do you guys have the fringe controlling the Republican Party now?
No, I don't think so. I think that
where are mainstream Republicans, or is there such a thing? Or what is a MAGA Republican?
They love to use the term MAGA Republican. I think all the Republican Party is MAGA. I don't know how anyone can not be MAGA. You want to make the country great, and I think what
does it mean? How do you do that?
Just look at the list of 47 of the things that President Trump has done in these 40-something days in office is secure the border, bring trade fairness, bring manufacturing jobs back to America. You see these lists of
fire all the workers.
Well, listen, the federal government's bloated. I mean, we're losing trillions of dollars every year. We got to run it like a business. If you look at I would challenge any agency not to be able to cut 10% of what's in their budget.
Yeah, that's an exercise the legislature goes through periodically. Give us a budget with 10% cut. Usually that comes from vacant, their attrition or vacant positions or whatever. That's the DOGE. I interrupted you, so go ahead and finish with MAGA, and then I want to talk about DOGE.
But I think what you're looking at is it's making those agencies more effective, and sometimes that means getting rid of people. But these guys who've not been on remote work may work for some people. It doesn't work for a majority of people, and I think they've been less productive. And you see they're enraged because they have to go back to work. And I talk a little bit about this on some other fronts, but I think that we've overprotected federal workers over a lot of years. That's just not how it always has been. The patronage system was bad, but we've now gone to the inverse of the patronage system. We now have this deep bureaucratic state that you can't move and you can't fire, and they're doing the job of Congress. And we need to motivate Congress to do their job and take the unelected bureaucrats out of the equation, because that's what we elect people to go to Congress to do.
You mean by passing rules and
Yeah.
making decisions about applications for permits and things like that? I mean,
Well,
how
permits
are
are
they?
one thing, but they're administrating rules that should be laws passed by Congress. They're making
Mhm.
decisions that affect people's businesses.
Mhm.
Some of the rules that they
I think
passed,
Chevron, though, really
that
did make
started going back in the different. I think
right.
the new Supreme Court has a much more realistic view of what's happening in the world, and is starting to dial back on that deep state.
Mhm.
So I think DOGE is going to build on that, and I think you look at all these governments. We're going to have this conversation about property tax,
Yeah.
and cities and counties are concerned. There's cities and counties doing a lot of jobs that cities and counties shouldn't be doing. They own golf courses. They run gymnastics schools. They do
State
all.
Park. Hold the phone there. Governor DeSantis wanted to put golf courses in some of the state's most pristine parks. So what are you talking about there?
Well, if you look in some other states, they do have golf courses in their state parks, and
So
they
why
are,
is
and
it
they're-
good
and-
for the state and not good for the
Well,
locals?
no, because they generate revenue. But I'll say what's happening in Tallahassee, or in the city of Tallahassee, is that they own a golf course.
Yeah.
They've driven the prices down, and they've driven other golf courses out of business, and they're proud of that. The former city
So
manager,
does Sam's Club and Costco.
former city manager bragged about driving other golf courses prices down. I mean, that's not the role of government, and we just need to get cities and counties out of that stuff.
I mean, if you're paying less to play a round of golf, are you hating on the fact that the
that's
city helped you save on that?
That's not the city's job.
Huh.
Cities should provide fire, trash pickup, roads.
Isn't that what property taxes go to help pay for?
Yeah, but not in the city of Tallahassee. Now we have to pay a fire service fee. We have to so we can pay for their bloat. And here's the reality of some of these cities. The city of Tallahassee is my best example because I live here.
Right.
Is that they want to pass a 3% pay raise every year. That 3% pay raise is more than the money that comes in from the increased revenue from property taxes. So you have a city government that's losing money every year, and that's unsustainable.
Well, until it isn't. I mean, until you call 911 and there nobody answers.
Well, if they didn't spend money on a gymnastics school, they could spend it on 911.
Well, then you could argue that you need the kids to have something to do so they're not running around dealing drugs and shooting each other.
Well, that's what the free market's for. We'll find that.
All right. Oh, my goodness. I did not anticipate that this was going to be so much fun. Evan, you have to promise to. We're not even done, and I'm already going to get you to promise to come back, okay?
Okay.
Like, you promise?
No, I promise. I'll come
Pinky
back.
swear? Okay. I forget where we were going. I was asking you about MAGA Republicans and how the Republican Party has shifted. You're talking the disruptor, Donald Trump isn't a young man, and yet the party seems to be, look at these folks that are running the country now. They're very young people with disruptor, fresh ideas. What do you think the impact of a John Morgan entering a governor's race in Florida is going to be? I mean, other than to hurt the Democrats.
It makes me laugh because obviously so few people trust Nikki Fried that they have to start another party to have John Morgan in charge. I mean, that should tell you something.
He's still bitter about that Andrew Gillum money.
I mean, he spent millions of dollars.
I
I mean,
know.
and how do you start a party and claim you want to represent Republicans when you supported Andrew Gillum? I mean, there's not a.
Well, he definitely has buyer's remorse on that. I
Well,
mean,
yes.
he has publicly, he wants his money back.
But
and
he
whatever.
didn't disagree with anything he did. He disagreed that he didn't spend the $4 million to beat Ron DeSantis. So, it's just a second Democrat party if John Morgan comes along. And I think he's overthinking the popularity of the issues that he's running on. He is just running on essentially weed.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that doesn't motivate 90% of Florida voters.
Let's give him credit for backing the amendment that raised the minimum wage. I mean, that was a successful endeavor and people do like that. So it's, he's trying to appeal to blue collar everyday workers, I
But
think, in that.
but that lane doesn't exist anymore because Donald Trump and the Republican Party now represent the workers. You see what they're doing on bringing jobs back. That is the voter that's become a Republican that's left the Democrat Party, and you're not going to get them back with a third party.
What do you think the big issues are going to be in next year's elections?
I think the economy, until it gets going again, is always going to be an issue. I think we're going to be able to sell what we're doing on that. And then I also think it's going to be a referendum on this disruption of the fact of not of getting government out of your life. I think property tax is going to be a big part of that conversation. I think if they get that on the ballot in some form, I think that's going to be a big issue because people are. What I hear when I go and talk to all these local counties is people are tired of paying money to the government and not knowing what they're getting back from it, and that's on the federal level and on the state level. And so I think people are and when I say state, I mean city, county, and state.
Right.
But I think people are really frustrated with the fact that they're paying property tax. A property tax that's increased by a very large amount in a very short time because their home values have gone up, and you're not getting more services based on that. So who is eating all that money? And what we're finding is there's waste, fraud, and abuse in our cities and counties, just like there is waste, fraud, and abuse in the DOGE stuff that you're seeing at the federal level, because when you get that surplus of money, you want to spend it.
Right.
And I think it's a compliment to our legislature and the governor that last year they actually reduced the amount of money they were spending as a state, even though the money coming in was greater. And I think that is
I
restraining.
think it was more money. They spent more money.
They did the year before, but then they're starting to bring it back down.
Okay.
And then they've also used that money to pay off the debt, which I think is long term will save you money in your budget.
How does it work we touched on it, but you completely do away with property taxes. That's like a multi-billion-dollar loss in revenue for local governments.
Yeah.
How you may be able to make some savings. Okay, so say I agree with you that there is some bloat. You can shave 10% off whatever you're spending right now. That's more than a 10% reduction in revenue. What happened? How do you make that up? The governor has said he doesn't support increasing sales taxes, which, is a regressive tax and people pay that. It's not really, you don't want to be the state with the highest sales tax in the country, right?
Well,
or do you? Okay, he's looking at me like, man, that's not a bad idea.
In a state like Florida, I mean,
we have no income tax, no state income tax,
and a lot of your sales tax is paid for by people who are visiting here. So
That's true.
you're sharing that
Our
weight.
100 million tourists.
Correct. So you're sharing that weight with other people who don't necessarily live here long term, but use our roads and fun. And I think there would have to be a phase in if you're going to completely eliminate property tax. But I think that we have to relook at how we're doing government. Just because it's the way we've always done it doesn't mean it has to continue. If you put, if you share that you get it in sales tax and expend it in a different way, maybe we focus cities and counties on doing the jobs they're supposed to do and not all these other things.
I mean, that would be a hell of a legacy for Governor DeSantis if he were to get this through in 2026 in the governor's race year, right?
Yeah, I think it would fire up a lot of voters. You also, I meant to say this and I forgot, is also by eliminating property tax, you create an economic boom. When I worked for Marco Rubio, we studied a little bit of the tax swap on school board taxes. When you lower or eliminate property tax, you get an economic boom because people want to build things that are square footage wise, so warehouses, things that you want to bring to Florida, and then that brings in more jobs and more economic benefit. So you actually start getting increased revenue in the out years on your sales tax revenue, even when you hold it a line, because you're bringing in more jobs, more people, and more economic opportunity.
I mean, it sounds good as a, kind of pie in the sky, but the reality of it, I don't know. It does. Maybe I'm just too old. I can't think like a disruptor now, but it is quite a.
It's a bold strategy. It's a bold, but you got to rethink government. I think people are getting frustrated with. I mean, the history of the United States is based on a frustration with government, so they redefine government. You see that throughout history. But I think people are getting frustrated with government taking their money and them not seeing a result for that money.
And then and then we're going to be spending more on policing, though, on law enforcement, on, helping deport people who are not in the country legally, on the state guard, which has like all kinds of equipment and gear. And I mean, we're spending tens of $1 million on that. Is that something that is a priority for Floridians?
I think this, well, if you talk about the state guard, our National Guard has been underfunded by the federal government. We obviously use our National Guard in a lot of ways for hurricanes and recovery.
Oh,
and
they're running the prisons, by the way.
and the state guard comes through and is helping in those situations. So I think that's a good use of us liberating ourselves from the whims of the federal government and their underfunding of our National Guard. So we have our own help for hurricanes, and you've seen we've been tremendously successful with the hurricanes.
So like a state, so
it's not it is. I love the fear factors on that.
I'm not, is that fearful? Am I being fearful by saying
but
that?
It's like the governor's going to invade a county. He's
has
not
his own private army. I know.
No, and that's not it. They're helping people. They're doing a job that the National Guard does. Many other states have it too. I think the Democrat talking points were a little over the top.
Okay, I didn't mean to. I'm not making an argument for Nikki Fried or anyone. I'm having a conversation
I understand.
with you.
I was just
Yeah, and that's good. You have a sense of humor. You're funny. Let's talk about the 2026 elections.
okay.
Because President Trump has already got one person in the race by his tweet. It's important to remember, and I had Joe Gruders on here a couple weeks ago, and he said, let's not forget that President Trump's tweet in whatever year that was, 6 years ago.
2018, yeah.
26 years ago, really helped catapult Governor DeSantis to be Governor DeSantis. I don't even know if it helped or was, without that, I don't know that he could have beat the establishment candidate. That was Adam Putnam, who most people now have probably very few have heard of. But Byron Donalds, congressman, he signaled he was, run Byron, run, or whatever he said. And then shortly after, Byron Donalds did say he's in the race. We've heard about Casey DeSantis as a possible contender for 2026. Now, you are the chairman. You're close to all these folks. So tell us, is Casey DeSantis going to be running for governor? And what does that mean if she goes up against the president's handpicked person?
So I've not had a conversation with Casey DeSantis about running for governor. So let me say that on the front end. I've had a conversation with Byron about it. Byron's in. I think the president's tremendously popular. His opinion matters to Floridians. But the governor's
That's what Joe said.
The governor's opinion matters also. If you look at it, and I think, we talked about black and white.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it that way. If you did focus groups in the presidential race, you would see that people really love President Trump. They really love Ron DeSantis, but they knew what they were getting with President Trump on a presidential level. So they chose that. They went that way. I think both of them are tremendously popular. People forget that, Governor DeSantis is the reason the amendments go down.
Mm-hmm.
He's the reason that happened. So both of them are tremendously popular. We're going to have, in a state like Florida that we don't have to worry about a Democrat winning the governorship, there's probably going to be a primary challenge. There's probably going to be several people in the Republican governor field. So from a party standpoint, I think we're looking forward to having a debate on who wants to keep Florida winning and keep moving the ball forward for Florida. And we're prepared as a party to build the infrastructure to turn over those keys as soon as we have a nominee, so that they can share that message to the voters and they can win the state by a big number and be ready to go to govern.
But there's talk also about Governor DeSantis running for president again in 2028. If Casey DeSantis runs for governor in 2026, what then? Like, is she here for 2 years? Is she here in Florida in the governor's mansion and he's up in the way? How does that work?
I don't know any of that. And those are the discussions that our voters are going to have. And what I've learned, I say this as a party chair, so for the first time I get to not have an opinion in any of these things. I think the voters will do the voters thing. But I have a lot of faith in our voters. They pick the right people at the end of the day, and that's the reason Florida's winning. The way
if you put Casey up against Byron, who do you think comes out ahead in that race?
I think it'll be interesting. I think. You know,
Oh, that's a very
listen,
PC.
I've learned not to second guess these things. I mean, if you had asked me 2 years out, in the last governor's race, everyone was saying Adam Putnam. If you look back into 2010, 2 years out, or a year and a half out, wherever we are, you would have said Bill McCollum was going to win the governorship.
Bill who? I know. I mean, I know.
So
but,
Florida's voters have a way of bringing out the best in candidates and having them communicate with them. And I have a lot of faith in our electorate to pick the right person who wants to move Florida forward.
Bill McCollum, for those who don't know, was running against Governor Scott, who's now is the U.S. Senator Scott.
Yeah, he was Attorney General. He was the front runner.
He was the front runner. Yes. Okay, who's going to be the next CFO, and are we going to have a lieutenant governor?
I believe we'll have a lieutenant governor at some point. I just do. But I think there's several rumors going on about the CFO, whether it's a placeholder who will hold the job for 2 years, or whether Senator Ngolia will get the job. You said you talked to Senator Gruters. He's all in. He has the president's endorsement.
That's right.
So I think regardless of
he's like, bring it. I don't know if you listened to that.
I didn't, but I've talked to him, so I know he's bring it.
Right. He's like, you know what? I got the president. You bring anybody up against,
And listen, it's a weird place for me to be. Two former party chairs are going to square off against each other.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to have to referee this match. So
I know. And you know what else I noticed? They both wear those aura rings.
Oh, do they?
Yes.
Maybe they're closer than they think they are.
I don't know. I asked Senator Gruters about it because he was wearing one and I noticed it. And then I was watching Blaze the other day in a committee and he had one on too. And I thought, well, that's funny. That's a thing now.
Well, their backgrounds are similar too, as being party chairs and active in local parties.
I know.
So I mean, it'll be interesting. I think the two of them are going to face out no matter what happens with the appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be an interesting conversation with our grassroots of which direction we're going and which one of them is going to be the best CFO.
If the governor did appoint Blaze Ngolia, Senator Ngolia, to CFO after the president has been very vocal in his support for Senator Gruters, what does that send a message to the president? Like, I don't care who you want for this. I'm going to do my own thing. Is he asserting his authority there in that relationship?
Well, I don't think that the governor ever doesn't do what he thinks is right. So I think he's going to do what he thinks is best, irregardless of what the president wants. I think their relationship is complex. Obviously, they played golf last week. They play golf pretty regularly from what I hear in the conversations that I have with them. I think they have a complex relationship, but it's not unlike any other politician over time. We don't have to agree all the time. I don't agree with everyone in my party all the time, but if I go back to Reagan, you mentioned Reagan earlier, our 80% friend isn't our 20% enemy. And so I think that their relationship is a political one where there's give and take.
All right. We're going to talk about hemp in a minute, but first I want to ask you, what's on your DOGE list? Is it, and I'm saying DOGE, is it DOGE or DOGE?
It's DOGE, I guess.
DOGE. We're all calling it DOGE, I've decided.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay.
No, I just want to, I think from the DC point, we were talking about it before, is I think, workforce does need to be slimmed. I think we have a bloated workforce. I think.
No, I meant. Well, go ahead. Give me your serious DOGE list, and then I want to know, like, if you at home.
Oh, okay.
In Evan Power's life, what's on your DOGE list? You don't have any bloat in your life. Tell me.
Oh no, you can ask my wife. I have plenty of things we can get rid of. So,
okay.
But yeah, it's those monthly things that all the subscriptions that we have that we get.
Right. The subscriptions.
Yeah, like TV channels, apps that we don't watch.
Do you know that James Uthmeyer, our new Attorney General, spoke at one of our events at News Service of Florida's event for 40 Under 40 recently. Yeah. And one of the pieces of advice that he gave to folks was to cancel your Netflix subscription for a year. I mean, Evan's giving me a look here.
Yeah, well, my wife would riot. I cannot.
I would riot,
and I cannot cancel the Disney Plus because the 16-month-old has to,
have
watch
the
a little
Disney
bit.
Plus,
Has to watch a little bit.
Okay.
So that doesn't work for me. But subscriptions, there's a lot of them. Like I think we all signed up for Paramount Plus to watch Yellowstone. I don't need that anymore.
Yeah, I never did that one. I have a gazillion million subscriptions, but that is not one that I
Yeah.
have. Although I will say that I lived in Jackson, Wyoming, and I graduated from Jackson Hole High School, which is right outside of Yellowstone, and the Teton National Park was my stomping grounds.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got a federal ticket for being in an illegal hot pot in Grand Teton National Park. That's a whole nother story, divas.
Your criminal past.
That was a $50 ticket, which was a lot of money back in them days, I got to tell you. So anyway, your subscriptions, what else is on your DOGE list?
Other than that, I think, I'd have to look at it. My wife probably has a laundry list of things that we could spend less money on. We also spend a lot of money on takeout and that kind of thing, but we should probably be better about that.
I think white button-down shirts. I probably have about, I don't even want to name the number of them, and they're all like, I've never met a white button-down shirt I didn't need or have to buy.
My wife would say that I need less shoes because I'm on the shoes.
I
but-
had Forrest on last week. He said he had 5 pairs of shoes. He went through them all, and I said that cannot be possible.
No,
it cannot be possible.
I found Cole Haan online with the different colors. And so
I have a pair of those. Only I have the monk straps, and they have the inside, like they're the you're walking on air thing, or whatever they are.
They're great.
They're like sneakers, only they look like shoes.
Correct. But I like every color to match, like the color scheme that I'm going. That's
he's wearing brown today.
Yeah, I am. So I took off the tie. I have a tie that goes with it. So
well, it's very sharp. It goes with the whole outfit. Okay, we're going to talk about hemp.
Okay.
So you helped, party helped, governor helped kill the amendment that would have legalized adult use.
Yeah.
We do have medical.
Right.
The hemp, and we've been listening for the past couple of days. We're recording this as the House is doing these work groups on hemp. You represent, you're a lobbyist, and you represent he's giving me the side eye, like, no, what? You're not a lobbyist anymore?
No.
Okay.
I was just making sure that, no, I represent the Florida Healthy Alternatives Association, which is a conglomerate of different hemp manufacturers.
It's the association that represents the hemp industry. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I wasn't going to get it wrong.
No, it's
yeah. So the governor vetoed. They passed a bill last year that would have, the folks said would have put them out of business.
Correct.
And I forget how many. Well, you tell me how many businesses, like 5,000.
I didn't prep for this part, so
Okay.
my numbers are going to be off. But
all right. Well, it's lots of businesses and with workers and businesses, and we've been hearing a little bit about this from the House work groups. There was a little controversy about that because they said that there was something that came out that was reported that one of the folks said, look, we got this veto. We promised the governor we'd give X number of dollars to help kill the amendment. Anyway, the veto did come, and the legislature, I don't know if they're looking at this again, but these are products that get the point of the question. I'm sorry I'm taking so long getting to it. We've been hearing about how these are intoxicating products. They're not regulated in the same way that the marijuana products are regulated. I wanted to talk about this because I've had the marijuana folks on a lot to talk about that industry. Why should this be something that the legislature looks at? Should this be, why one and not the other?
So the people that I represent believe in regulation, and so they've been trying to push a bill to have regulation. The bill that got passed last year would have put them out of business, would prevent farmers. There's farmers moving from California and other places that are coming here, creating jobs, building product here, and so that bill would have put them out of business. But the governor in his veto said, if you're going to have hemp products, and hemp products are not just and they're not intoxicating. If the hemp side is not THC9, which is so it's a different brand, but it's also
true.
but it's also used for different things. It's also used in concrete. It's used in some buildings, some water filtering. There's a number of things that it's used for, and the state spent
That it can be
that it can
used
be
for.
well, and the
It isn't really being used for those things
it's
yet.
being used in concrete block. I know that,
For
but
the hempcrete, yeah.
we've I think the state, and I say the state has spent money on hemp research over the years for those reasons. But I believe in a free market and competition. And what you see is happening is they have a product that people want. They don't necessarily want to get a medical marijuana card and get TH9. They want a hemp, which is a different experience, a different product. It's a sleep aid for some people. It prevents seizures for some people. It does a number of different things. And so they want common sense regulation. They don't want to market it to kids. They don't want to, they want to put all of that, take it out of the proposed bill that Hillary Cassell has, takes it out of convenience stores and moves it to 21 plus stores so there's no chance of accidental acquiring that by minors, those kinds of things. Those are the regulations. They're in line with what the governor wants is that regulation. Now, the articles, the pushback on the constitutional amendment is they somehow made a deal. There was no deal. I can tell you that. But people do want to support. They did not like the hemp growers did not like the medical marijuana bill or amendment because it gave a monopoly to those MMC operators. And me philosophically, I don't believe we should legislate through the Constitution. So I'm against them on the very beginning of it. I think that's why we elect a legislature. But they was going to put all that in the hands of a few people when you have a vibrant, robust market that exists out there, and we should regulate it in a meaningful way that protects consumers. And it shouldn't just be in the hands of a few people.
Why not just open it up? I mean, why not just, we have we have this vertical integration system now for medical marijuana. We have a limited number of licenses. The department is years behind in the health department in issuing, they are statutorily required to issue, I think it's like 24 more licenses that would essentially double the size of the industry. They haven't done that. They're saying, well, there's going to be litigation, but they could go ahead and do it even without the litigation. So why not? This is the governor's, administration is sitting on these licenses at the same time he's saying these companies have a monopoly. Well, you have the power to completely, not to undermine their monopoly, but to dramatically expand the competition, and you're not doing it.
And I think that's a discussion they should have in the legislature. I do. And I think there's also a discussion that needs to be had on if you look at the hemp products, those aren't products that are flammable products. You're seeing a lot of pushback for the flammable products that are THC9 that where they're smoked. Because do you want to?
You can buy them. Wait, you and I can go right now and buy them flour and ignite it, and then it gets you, and then it has a higher.
Yeah, but that's a very small part. Let me.
Okay.
I'm talking, and I'm talking broadly in the fact that there should be a discussion of where people can smoke it. We've limited the ability for people to smoke tobacco in certain places.
Sure.
And so when that constitutional amendment had some unintended consequences.
Okay, I see what you're saying. You're going back to that. Okay.
But I'm saying, like, just from a state standpoint, I think we have to have a conversation about where we want Florida to go forward and competition, but also protecting the right. I believe your rights end when it starts affecting other people. If you've been to Bourbon Street in New Orleans, it smells like weed. Do we want Florida? If you go to San Francisco, the whole town smells like weed. Is that a view we want to have in Florida? So I think we need to have those discussions at the legislative level of limiting where people can consume certain products when they impact other people.
Do you think that these stores should be regulated? The people who are selling these products should be prohibited from selling them, like, say, near a school or places like that?
Well, I think that's what the Hillary Cassell bill kind of does.
I see. Is that the bill? I mean, is that going to happen this year? The governor was quite prescriptive in his veto letter.
No, he's very detailed. You know exactly what the governor wants.
Yeah.
And I think they went beyond what the governor said, which was in the Hillary Cassell bill. It says take it out of all these convenience stores, these places
Yeah,
that, and when we talk about convenience stores, we mean gas stations
I
without gas
understand.
pumps, the ones that just operate on their own.
Like a stop and go or
Yeah.
whatever.
And so, put it in a 21 plus store, and then you can have some protection. And I think that's a fair trade for people who want to get that product and not fall in the wrong hands.
Okay, so thank you for that discussion. I'm sorry, I should have given you a heads up.
I would have
that
given
we were-
you more numbers, but
No,
that
that's
was
all
good
right.
enough.
I asked you about your biggest challenge as the chairman. What do you think? What was your biggest surprise after taking over as chair? You had been active in local. You were the vice chair,
Yeah.
so maybe not anything major. But what was the biggest surprise, or what has surprised you the most in the year that you've been at the helm?
I think that I always had a vision of trying to empower our county parties and put them out and doing work. We provided a lot of resources to them. I've been surprised at just the buy-in that we've gotten. You look at, and we keep going back to it, but Amendment 3 and 4 really motivated our grassroots. And I believe we have the best grassroots in the country. They went out and walked hundreds of thousands of doors, made tons of phone calls, did all of that, not just to help President Trump, but to kill Amendment 3 and 4 and help down the ballot. And you look at places where we were able to win. You look at Miami-Dade County. We won it for the first time since 1988. You look at Palm Beach County. We got within 0.66% of flipping Palm Beach County, which we would have thought was unheard of a couple years ago. So you see that the message that we're sharing that is working, and our grassroots are delivering on communicating that message to voters. And that's why you end up now we have 87 Republicans in the state house. I remember at the heyday of Marco's time when we cracked 84 once, we thought, oh, this is unsustainable. Now we're at 87, and there's targets out there of places we can win new seats. And I think
So what's your goal for next year?
I want to protect the supermajorities, but there's seats that I want, they're House District 45 is in Orlando, represented currently by Representative Leonard. And I think we're going to have good candidates in that seat to flip that one back, defend the Orlando seats. But I think there's seats that we can win in South Florida. And my prediction in the future, I think we're going to flip this cycle. We're going to flip Miami-Dade registration-wise, and then we'll flip Duval registration-wise, and then we'll start focusing on and Palm Beach and Broward.
Wow. It is amazing to think of what South Florida was like. I remember, I forget who it was, the People's Republic of Broward,
Correct.
And they really have, everywhere, up and down, and those three, the Tri-County area has really
moved. And you have seats down there like Representative Moskowitz in Congress. That's a winnable seat for us.
Yeah.
Representative Soto in Orlando, that's a winnable seat for Republicans. So I think you're going to see us compete in places that people aren't really used to us competing. But when you take places like Hillsborough and Pinellas off the board and they've become great Republican places, it allows us to spend those resources in other places. And I think that's what we're so surprised about. The field is opening for us. It's not closing, even though we're at record highs.
What are your thoughts about the legislature doing these work groups and doing that little veto override in the beginning of doing their own thing with the immigration bill and during the special session before they, there was a kumbaya moment, I guess. Do you think that's healthy, that kind of little bit of tension between the branches?
Well, I think we always have it. I think the immigration was a little different because it was on its own. If it had happened during the regular 60 days, it would have been molded in with everything else. But I think that tension between ideas inside of our own party only make us stronger if we can come back together at the end of it, which is what we have done. So I think you don't want to divide into camps that are continuously fighting each other. But if you can have a robust discussion, and then enact policy that is a game-changing policy, because it was the most aggressive immigration law in the country. When you deliver those results after having those discussions, it only makes the brand stronger and only makes the party stronger.
This brand of politics, you call it disruptive, and the way that we see folks being very, I don't know, like aggressive with aggressively defending their positions and going after. I mean, we saw some very strong language from the governor and his allies during that dispute over immigration. I mean, is that the way that we're going to see? Is that the kind of politics that we're going? Is that the new norm now?
I think so. I think that's what the voters want. They want people who are going to aggressively fight.
They want scrappy fighters.
Yeah, they want change. I mean, I think that was it's the constant in the last 3 elections, or last 3 presidential, is change. They don't like what's happening. They feel like they've gotten a raw deal from the political elected class, and they want people who are willing to go fight for them. And you're seeing the rise of the fighter. I always call it the fighter ethos of Florida. You had these guys who went up there, and Matt Gaetz, Byron Donalds, Corey Mills. You go through the list of people who are willing to aggressively stake out their policies in D.C. And the governor's like that as the governor of Florida. People want more of that because they want people fighting for them. And I think what you're asking about the disruptive nature of getting rid of some functions of city and county government, but that's what people want. They're tired of government running their lives. They want to run their own lives, and that's what the free state of Florida is based on. And I think that that's contagious. When I go to RNC meetings and talk to people around the country, a lot of their voters feel the same way.
Evan Power, one last question. You mentioned shoes. Crocs, yay or nay?
Nay.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
This is why we don't get along on everything.
Evan Power, one of my OGs. Thank you so much for joining me in the Speakeasy today. I can't wait to have you back.
Perfect. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to being back.
Thanks for listening to Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida, hosted by News Service senior writer Dara Cam and produced by me, Mike Exline. Music for the podcast was recorded by Periodic Labs, LLC.